Now it's time to start applying color to your compositions. At this point, you have played around with color palettes. The assignment is to create a monochromatic color palette. So tints, shades, and tones maybe of a particular color. So in this case, I chose this teal color and I created tints and shades. So adding white and adding black to the color. And then here's one where it's more of a tone, adding a little bit of gray. So a little white and a little black to a color to make it more toned down. This color palette might be tweaked as I work through my project. I might need to add some more. Like looking at this, I maybe need to add a more intense color. For example, maybe I need to add one that's a little bit more like bright. I'll maybe make a copy of this. But anyway, we'll work through that as we kind of start applying color. The first thing you'll want to do is create a background. So your document is white, just like a piece of paper is white, and you were to draw this on the paper. It's just like that. If you want the background to be a color, you actually have to create and apply the color. So what I did was I just took the rectangular tool and I drew the background and I filled it with a color. Okay, so if I want to draw a background for this one, which I do, I want to send it to the background, send to the back, and then I can I've got a little extra box here, and then I can play around with the background color as well. So let's start with subtle. I can select an object and I can use my eyedropper tool, and it's going to suck up the color that you click on. So it might apply font color, font style. In this case, it's just a color fill. And so it could change color. It's just a quick way to change the color of something, right? So let's say I want to go with this really light, subtle color. And then you can, change the background. Because the word is subtle, I probably want the color also to be subtle. So I want to make sure that I kind of express that as well. You cannot use black or white in this project, so replace it with, if you want a really light, do a really light tint of a color or a really dark shade of that color to kind of have that same feeling, but then it's going to feel more unified if you choose colors that really work with the other colors that you have in your composition. You can also take your object, and if you saved your swatches to a folder or a group, you can click on your swatches in there. So the eyedropper tool is not the only way or necessarily the correct way. It's just another way. So I'm going to play around with the color here, and I want the color to be really bold. So I'm going to work with creating some more intense contrast and some intense colors. And I might take my eyedropper tool and just pick up that color from there. And I also want to bring this bee to the front. And maybe I've got some contrast there. And I can see that because of the way this font was structured, and I did create the outlines for each letter. So they are shapes. They are not necessarily letter forms anymore. So let's see here, just playing around with the background and making that really bold and stand out more. And when you change the colors, it can really change the way it looks. So I'm going to change the inside color here. Oh, white arrow allows you to directly select an object that is maybe part of a group. Playing around with some color and see what works and what doesn't. Maybe this one is that same color. Nope, that's not going to work either. Another way to apply color is the live paint tool, and that's going to work really with this one. What the live paint tool will do was it will find edges of a selection and fill that space. So see this space here between these two S's? I can select these two objects. I don't want the background part of the selection. I can go over here and find the live paint tool. It's usually hiding under this one. Live paint bucket is what it's called. You can find your color that you want, and then you can dump it into a particular space. The only thing is you have to have your object selected so it can recognize the edges. Okay, so that is another way to do it if you wanted to separate and break out all of these shapes into different colors. Once you've kind of got a solution done, you are going to create 3 solutions for every single composition. So you're going to have a total of 6 solutions. So I'm going to take this one and I am going to drag it down. I'm going to hold the Option key to make a copy and the Shift key to make it lined up. And I'm going to make another copy, Option, Shift. And these are just going out on the sketchboard. So I'm going to use that gray area as a sketchboard to kind of come up with more solutions. Because when you can work through more than one solution, you're going to come up with the best solution. If you create just one solution, you're only going to have one, and it might not be the best one. So again, you might tweak your color palette a little bit. I'm feeling right now that this one is just not quite bold enough, and so I might play around with the intensity of the color and maybe a slight adjustment to some of those. So this time I am going to bring my swatches down here. I'm going to try something different. Maybe I go with a really light color there, and actually I'm going to adjust it a little bit. I'm going to add a little white. We're going to go really light, and then almost white, and then I'm going to go background dark to create this really high contrast. And I need to kind of find these other shapes here. Maybe I play around with the differences in those too. And it's just a matter of playing around with what works and what doesn't work. Yeah, so I'm going to kind of, maybe I go like this and make them the same color as that one. And you can see that that totally changes the look of the composition, you know, this versus this. If I come over to the S and I start playing with the paint bucket tool, so I'm going to select the background, this shape, and this shape so it finds all the edges, I can start playing around with the live paint bucket. I can grab the colors from my swatches, or I might grab the colors from the eyedropper tool. And you can see how it just dramatically changes the way it looks. And not saying that what I'm doing right now is really that effective, but I just want you to think about how color can be really applied in so many different ways. Okay, so there we've got 2 totally different looking compositions. Still the same composition, just very applied color very differently. So you're going to come up with 3 solutions here, and you are going to take a screenshot. Command Shift 4 creates a little camera, and you're going to click and drag. You're going to take a picture of your 6 solutions, and those 6 solutions are also going to be submitted with your final project. Your final project, let's say I find that I want this one and this one. I have to make sure they're on the document. Okay, so when you export and save, it's only going to save what's on your document. So File, Save As, and I can select, we're going to export these as JPEGs. File, Export, and we're going to select JPEG, and we want to use the artboards, and we want both of them, right? We want it to create 2 different JPEGs, and we'll call it your name. Always use your name in the file name. R. Paulson _ typography would be just fine. And then put them in your folder that you want. And go ahead and export. Here is another really important step. Make sure the quality is high and make sure the resolution is 300. Okay? If you save it lower than 300, when we print these, they will have really low resolution and they aren't going to look very good. So high quality at 300 dots per inch, and then say OK. And let's take a look at the files that it created. So if I open it, there's one. I open the other one. There's the other one. That is going to be the files that you submit.